And I shared a pavlova with Phil Collins.
No. But did you talk to him about, how much his music has influenced you?
I certainly did. And he signed up a load of albums for my sister Becky. He was an absolute charming man. And it was a charming pavlova.
Welcome to a super special edition of Through the Decades on Absolute Radio. My name's Jay Lawrence. I'm joined by special guests who've chosen every single one of the songs we're going to play. Elbow, Guy, Pete, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
How you doing?
See you.
Now, how was it sifting through the last 60 years and picking your favourite songs?
It was hell. Hell!
How was it, Guy? How was it sifting through?
Oh, it was exhausting, Jay.
As we always do, we start with Absolute Radio 60s. You chose the Velvet Underground for your Absolute Radio 60s choice. Pete, do you remember, how you first, heard them? Do you remember when you first heard them? What it was like listening to them?
I probably first heard them with that advert. Was it Pirelli?
I don't remember.
It was it was kind of like quite bondagey.
Was it Venus in Furs?
Venus in Furs it was, yeah. And I remember just being blown away by it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got, and then it was probably around meeting you, Garth.
Yeah.
Would imagine.
When I met the lads, we were 16. It was the end of the summer after leaving school, I think, or maybe the following year. But I remember being at a house party at Ange Duddy's house. Do you remember Ange Duddy, Pete?
Yeah.
I was at a party at her house because her parents had gone away, and we'd been up all night. And I mean, that in itself was just huge. That I didn't have to go home, and I'd been awake all night. And there was just these amazing, exotic sort of goth girls who I was too timid to talk to. And then in the morning, the Velvet Underground Banana album went on, the Andy Warhol one, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was something other than music. It was just amazing.
Representing Absolute Radio 60s as we go through the decades, it's Velvet Underground. I'm waiting for the man, as chosen by my special guest tonight, Elbow. That means that we're going into the 70s next. Some actually very different, I think, from the Velvet Underground, but a band that, you can't ignore when you're talking about the 70s. How much, or do you think that Genesis have influenced the band at all?
Hugely, via me. And it's kind of, it's because my eldest, the youngest of my 5 older sisters, Becky, used to play me Genesis. Their sort of early work with Peter Gabriel, followed by the couple of albums after that with Phil Collins singing, there's magical qualities to them. There's lots of mythical beasts and stories about faraway lands. And Becky remembers an album coming out, and the tagline was, "The Great Storytellers Return." And Genesis were my nursery rhymes. And early doors with Elbow, when we were playing each other the music that we loved, it was one I was really pleased that the lads connected with, because when you start and you don't really know how to play your instruments and you're wondering what kind of sounds you could make, during that initial period of exploration, we got into all kinds of things, and Genesis was one of them. The first song of ours that did anything on radio was called Newborn on our first album, and it was based almost on a blueprint of a Genesis song called Entangled. And then I was on a weekend breakfast program, when you have food and cocktails with all the famous people to promote your work. And I shared a pavlova with Phil Collins.
No.
Yeah.
Did you talk to him about, how much his music has influenced you?
I certainly did. And he signed up a load of albums for my sister Becky. He was an absolute charming man. And it was a charming pavlova.
He didn't make the pavlova, I assume.
No.
Why in particular this song though, Follow You, Follow Me?
That song it's one of the early ones that Guy played me that I really loved. It's just a very cool song. It's very 70s, isn't it?
Well, from Absolute Radio 70s, this is Genesis, Follow You, Follow Me, as chosen by Elbow. Talk to me about The Cure then, because that's, who you've chosen for Absolute 80s. What sort of effect, did The Cure, listening to bands like The Cure, sort of, have on you two?
For me, it was the thing that everybody was listening to and I'd heard of, and I didn't know anything of it, and then was introduced to it and sort of realised how amazing they were. And him as a wordsmith, actually, for me, it was a big one. And you probably were into him before I was, Pete, through your sisters, right?
Yeah, I love Disintegration. But the thing about Lullabies, it's one of those really special songs that comes along that doesn't sound like anything else. It was a similar thing with Fool's Gold, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just like, what the is this? This is amazing. Nothing sounds like that.
Yeah.
I think, I love the way that The Cure are The Cure. The way that they just unapologetically do what they want. We were lucky enough to play with them.
Yeah, they had to support them.
Yeah,
Old Trafford.
At Old Trafford. Yeah, it's like it's called Move, and we played with them, and they were absolutely astonishing.
Well, here we go, representing Absolute 80s, as chosen by Elbow. It's The Cure and Lullaby. Guy, Pete, talk to me about REM. Talk to me about, specifically, I suppose, Automatic for the People. It's an album that, of course, so many people love from the 90s. An album as well, still holds up.
Automatic for the People is my favourite of theirs, and Drive is my favourite song. And Automatic's an album that we've always wanted to make something like it. It had such strong signals, but it's pretty dark. It's a great album. I mean, we kind of we first met Guy through loving REM.
Oh yeah, God, I've forgotten that actually. Yeah, of course. So, so Mark Potter, whose band Elbow is, it was his idea in the first place. He's the guitarist in the band. We went to the same sixth form college, and he'd heard me singing in the common room. With a guy called Alan Hibbard, who was a pal of mine. We used to write insulting songs about our college friends. We'd write them in the morning and perform them in the afternoon. What a pair of bastards. But Pot had heard me singing, and previous to that, there was a skirmish between two of our friends, a friend of mine and a friend of Pot's, and we'd been on other sides of a bit of a standoff, and eyeballed each other. I mean, in retrospect, we both know now that Pot could marmalise me with one hand behind his back. But then he heard me sing, and then he was driving home in his dad's sky blue Volkswagen Beetle, and he stopped and offered me a lift. And I was like, oh, that's the guy that I had the eyeball thing with. But okay, cool. So I got in, we're driving along, and Losing My Religion came on. He had a cassette, and I sang a harmony, and he said, I've got a band that I formed at school, do you want to sing? And I was like, yeah, when are you rehearsing? So he says, Sunday, I'll pick you up. So I said, cool, what time? So he said 11 o'clock. I was like, yeah, cool. Completely forgot. And I joined about 6 bands with people, and it just hadn't materialised, nothing had happened. But he turned up and he picked me up, and that was our first rehearsal.
Well, next we move to Absolute Radio, Naughties. Now you chose Doves. Now, do you guys have much of a relationship with the band?
Do you know what's really weird? Did you see me look over here just then? That was Jimmy from Doves phoning me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there you go.
So that's a yes then.
Yeah. They're like one of our sister bands. I describe them as like an older sibling. They took us on our first UK tour. They took us on our first US tour, and we've sang on each other's records. I co-wrote the lyrics on Jimmy's solo album. We're really good friends, really good.
It's like those early days were really exciting. It was they were like a couple of years ahead of us, weren't they? And we could see what was happening with them. We could see that they were You know what I mean? They were just hitting it. They were brilliant. And yeah, for them to take
we loved their music.
We had a cassette of Lost Souls before it actually came out, didn't we? Through our manager. And it was just amazing. It was just watching everything happen for them. And then they took us with them. Yeah. And it was great. It was really good fun.
Well, this is a fantastic song, though, isn't it? From Doves, There Goes the Fear.
Yeah. I think I'm singing on this, but I can't quite remember.
No, I'm singing on it.
Oh, is it you? No, it's Pete.
I think it's me.
Well, I don't know. What kind of world do you live in where you don't know if you're singing on Doves, There Goes the Fear? You must be singing. It's an incredible thing. Well, it's an incredible song.
I know I have sung on it because I remember doing it live at a Manchester Arena charity gig that both bands did. But I can't remember if I just did that or if I'm on the recording. In fact, no, I'm on the recording. I'm on this.
It's an amazing song, particularly for the backing vocals. It's Doves, There Goes the Fear, representing Absolute Radio Noughties. So we're going to move to Absolute Radio 10s next. So many bands that you could have chosen, so many that I'm sure that you've gone on tour with that you know. Pete, you chose the Arctic Monkeys. Talk to me about the Arctic Monkeys.
I think they get better and better. I think that it's a similar thing with Radiohead. I always find that they get better and better and they kind of move on. But I mean, when I first heard this song, I'd heard it on the radio a few times and it was just straight away. It's kind of got the slight dark, sexy vibe that Queens of the Stone Age have. You can probably imagine that Josh kind of influenced it from working with them earlier on, I suppose. But I remember watching them and being so chuffed at when they headlined Glastonbury that they started with it. I just thought it's a bold move.
Yeah.
You know, but it's probably one of their best songs, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Pete. They get better and better, and Al's an amazing lyricist, and they're mates. They're a bunch of friends, and I think that's a real band.
Here we go from Absolute Radio 10s, as chosen by Elbow. It's Arctic Monkeys. Do I Want to Know? Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? One more song to talk about. It just so happens to be by you guys.
Oh.
Just as an FYI, we're going to be playing 6 words. So tomorrow, you release your new record, Flying Dream 1. But before then, I'm going to get really self-involved and talk very, very quickly about myself. The other day, I was walking my in-laws' dog around this really picturesque field near their house. You know, it was misty, it was damp. I was lucky enough to have your new album in my headphones. And, you know, as you can imagine, over the last 2 years, 18 months, there's probably been less and less moments of calmness, of tranquility. And I think that was one of those moments that you realize at the time how you feel. This record, I think, really conveys that feeling of contentment. Was that intentional at all?
While we were writing these songs, we were all in our homes with our families, and so there's an awful lot of stuff about childhood on the record. There's also sort of whist and romance and nostalgia, but it's also crucial, cutting edge. Cutting edge, is that a phrase? It is now. Cutting edge art. We borrow a jazz aesthetic, but hey, hang on a minute, there's some soul in there. And then, of course, lyrics. Well, I mean, what can I say about the lyrics? It was really good fun to put together. It was dictated to by what instruments we had at home, but then the getting together in Brighton Theatre Royal while it was unable to open. We hired that place for 2 weeks to finish the album, and you can hear how happy we were to see each other and how much wine we drank. And it was a gentle, lovely, beautiful time to make this record with my old pals. And all the imagery in 6 words is images of North Manchester, of Prestwich. It says weary kids in bottle green, same gait as the ancient scholars. That's my old school uniform. Whenever I see kids coming home from school looking tired, I think, not long now. Life begins when you get out of that door. Mine certainly did. I hated it. I know the view from up on top of the world.
Thank you so much for joining me, Guy Pete. It's been an absolute pleasure having you today.
Thank you very much.
Well, Flying Dream 1 is out tomorrow, the new album from Elbow. Beautiful. It's a layered triumph, I would say, guys. It's a really incredible
I thought you were
listen.
going to say, Jay.
What? Go on.
It's a layered trifle.
I got that.
It's a layered trifle. Flying Dream 1 out tomorrow. Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers.
Jay.
Thanks, Jay.